a snooze fest. I was sincerely hoping that the Bond people were going to take a page from Marvel's playbook and go for some real pizzazz this morning with their press conference to announce the new title and cast for Bond 24. But they didn't. They went old school because, as many of you pointed out yesterday when we discussed at that point the pending Bond 24 press conference on Morning Movie News, this is a tradition for the Bond films. They have a nice little press conference and they make their announcements. But that's the past. That's before Marvel Phase 3's big press conference event. This is post. And I had really thought that they were going to go for the shock and awe that works so well for Kevin Feige. But instead, they just confirmed a bunch of, casting rumors, and they had no big surprise. They had no surprise about a character that was going to be involved in the film or a plot point, and they had no big surprise in terms of a cast member that they were adding. There's one moderate surprise, but it's somebody that Bond has been trying to get into the franchise for quite some time, to the point where I actually think it's a little bit past its sell date. We'll discuss that in a moment. But I think the biggest surprise is that they did taking a page from Marvel's playbook, but it's not the publicity playbook, it's the Captain America the Winter Soldier playbook. I mean, seriously, when you hear the synopsis for this new film, Bond 24, which will be entitled Spectre, wait for it, you might already be guessing where this is going, you could just substitute a few words in the synopsis and you would have the literal synopsis for Captain America the Winter Soldier. All right, so here it is. A cryptic message from Bond's past sends him on a trail to uncover a sinister organization. While M battles political forces to keep the Secret Service alive, Bond peels back the layers of deceit to reveal the terrible truth behind Spectre. Okay, let's turn it around. A cryptic person from Steve Rogers' past sends him on a trail to uncover a sinister organization. While Nick Fury battles political forces to keep S.H.I.E.L.D. alive, Steve Rogers peels back the layers of deceit to reveal the terrible truth behind Hydra. It's the same exact setup, even to the point where Spectre is, it does stand for, I believe the term is acronym for, some kind of crazy organization. And it is a criminal organization. And to be fair to Bond, it is from the Bond books. It has existed in the past for the Bond universe. So there's some purity there to bringing it into the story. But I'd be like, hey, I don't care where it comes from or when Ian Fleming dreamed it up. They've already done that over at Marvel. All right, so what does Spectre stand for? Spectre stands for Special Executive for Counterintelligence, Terrorism, Revenge, and Extortion. How businessy. I kind of like that aspect of it. And I think Hydra, this is one area where Bond might have a little bit of luck, and that Hydra still remains not that well defined. I mean, I largely just think of Gary Shandling actually as the the face of Hydra at this point. I mean, I know they have their cool little pin that people wear, and also Zola's been turned into like a living computer. But still, I think we don't really have a feel for it so much as an organization. It's really more of a whisper at this point, right? So, but anyway, it really is like the same story, and it just really puts an interesting question out there as Marvel expands exponentially, and not only in terms of the scope of their films, but into the genres. Are they going to start kind of, stealing the thunder from other franchises? Like when they start going into the mystical realm with Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch, are they going to start borrowing heavily from like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and those kind of movies? It's just a really interesting clash that might be on the horizon and is here. And when it comes to political thrillers, I mean, it really does seem like Captain America the Winter Soldier is the American version of Bond. And since Bond's coming second, it kind of makes it the British version of Captain America the Winter Soldier. All right, so let's discuss the cast. Again, really no surprises, except for the fact that the Aston Martin DB10 will be debuting in this film, made specifically for Spectre. So that's pretty interesting. I always love Bond's cars, and the fact they always have a new one for the film, a British model no less. But let's discuss the cast. All right, so Christoph Waltz, yes, he is confirmed. Oberhauser. I can't really discuss it, but I just saw Big Eyes last night, and Christoph Waltz was hamming it up again, just chewing the scenery as yet another villain. And I really hope that this time he can underplay the role. I mean, we've all seen hammy Christoph Waltz as a villain, and I think it's getting really old at this point. So I really hope there are different shades and levels for him to play here. So, but anyway, as we've discussed recently, it's still a very big deal for his career, and he'd be crazy to turn it down, no matter how hammy it might be. Then Lea Seydoux, a number of people, or Seydoux, has pointed out, French actress from Blue is the Warmest Color. I believe she was also in the Beauty and the Beast version recently came out with Vincent Cassel, but she is playing a character called Madeline Swann, so she's one of the Bond girls. And then the other Bond woman, I guess you have to say, and this is somewhat of a surprise, is Monica Bellucci. Now, with all due respect to Monica Bellucci, I don't really think she's that hot a property anymore. I mean, I'm sure in her, her native country, I believe she's an Italian actress, but she's in a lot of just European film in general. She's actually, I don't know if they're married, but they're kind of like the Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie of Europe, Vincent Cassel and Monica Bellucci. But Monica Bellucci, you might recall this a long time ago. She was a big get for the Matrix trilogy. Remember, they decided they could finally expand it after the first movie, and they're like, Monica Bellucci's in this movie, and it was like a really big deal. Well, that was a long time ago, and so I think that Monica Bellucci, I'm not saying she's still not a great actress, but this isn't the kind of casting where you're like, oh wow, that's so exciting. You're like, oh, that was a big deal a couple years ago. I guess I can see why she's finally available, Bond. And I just think it makes Bond feel dated when that's the last thing Bond needs. Bond is supposed to be charging into the future, right? But we'll see. But Monica Bellucci, she will be playing a character called Lucia Sciarra. All right, then Dave Bautista. Dave Bautista is in the film playing Mr. Hinx. He's going to be like a henchman maybe. I hope he's a little bit more than just a henchman. I want to see Dave Bautista prove himself. I thought he was a really big problem in Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought he was not a professional level actor, and I thought he really brought the film down. But so many people loved his performance in it, and he worked so hard in it, and it's just, it's a great underdog story that I'd love to see. I'd love that to be like, oh, hey, you know what, you just weren't ready, but James Gunn gave you a chance anyway. I hope he's taking acting lessons, and he's growing as an actor, and he can turn into something maybe really great. So that would be exciting, and I'm rooting for him. As I said, it's a great underdog story, and I'm excited he'll have maybe more lines, but maybe not. Again, hopefully he's taking those acting classes. I mean, Sam Mendes is a very good director, obviously, and I think that, I doubt that the Bond people would force him to take somebody on that he didn't want to take. So Dave Bautista's in this, and I think it's going to help the film a lot from, an audience appeal perspective, having that tie into Guardians of the Galaxy. They really do seem to be paying attention to Marvel, as does everybody these days. Then this is very exciting. This broke before the press conference, but I think it's a great addition, and that's Andrew Scott, a.k.a. Moriarty from Sherlock on the BBC, and he's playing a character called Denbigh, or Denbigh. And I think that's a great addition. I think that guy is so talented. If you haven't watched Sherlock on the BBC, the one that's made everybody a Benedict Cumberbatch fan, it's very popular and has a very strong cult following. A number of people have seen it, but every time I bring it up, never fails. Somebody in the comments like, Grace, you're crazy. Nobody watches Sherlock. It's a small little audience. Nobody cares. And I'm like, that's so sad because it's such a wonderful show. So go watch Sherlock and be absolutely blown away by Benedict Cumberbatch, Martin Freeman, and of course, Andrew Scott as a delightfully weird and perverse Moriarty. So good. So I'm really excited for him to have this opportunity, and he's also in the upcoming Frankenstein movie with Daniel Radcliffe and James McAvoy, so this is very exciting for him indeed, and if Benedict Cumberbatch isn't careful, his co-stars are going to pass him up. Martin Freeman's already, of course, in The Hobbit. So that's the cast. And also about Aston Martin. Then this was also kind of the one nice little surprise, in that the DP for Interstellar, Hoyt van Hoytema, of course had to take over for Wally Pfister for Christopher Nolan because, Wally wanted to go be a director. That didn't quite work out, so maybe he's back on the job, and that's why Hoyt needs a new work. But I think that's a great match for Sam Mendes. But considering the fact that Sam Mendes also borrows, I think, quite heavily, at least in Skyfall, from The Dark Knight. I think Sam Mendes is very smart. I mean, he's really copying and looking over the shoulders of both Nolan and Marvel, now Marvel, and I'd be curious to see what the result is, because the Skyfall result was amazing. First Bond movie ever to pass $1 billion at the box office. Then, of course, you have your regulars, Daniel Craig back as Bond, Ralph Fiennes as M, who's going to be fighting those political forces. Who would say we don't need a Secret Service? Maybe we don't need your Secret Service, this version, but every country needs a Secret Service. Ben Whishaw, of course, is Q, and Naomie Harris as Moneypenny. I hope they all have something to do, considering the new big cast that's been added. I would hate to see those very talented actors who have a great chance to reinvent these characters just pushed to the background, as they were in so many Bond movies. Judi Dench got a really great run as M, and I hope that Ralph Fiennes does as well. So I'm curious, what do you think of this? Are you a little bit disappointed like myself? Or are you like, hey, it's Bond, I trust them, it's going to be amazing? And what do you think of Bond's survival odds in this brand new world where comic book movies aren't just comic book movies anymore. And they also head into the same territory that these other movies want to explore. Because remember, Skyfall explored a lot of the same areas as The Dark Knight. And that was a very political film as well. So share your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for tuning in to my coverage for Bond 24, or as we now know it, Spectre. And you can check out some more episodes right now.